everybody. We're here today to talk about SugarCRM and QuickBooks integration. And so we're going to get right into this. We have a little PowerPoint, and then we'll get into demonstrating how the integration works and how from within a CRM like Sugar you can be synchronizing with QuickBooks and get access to all kinds of cool QuickBooks information from within Sugar. So that's me. As Adrian said, I'm CEO of Faye Business Systems Group. A little bit about us quickly. We've been doing consulting for over 25 years. We're a SugarCRM Gold partner. We've been providing ERP services as well with Sage, QuickBooks, Intact, and a number of other packages over the years. We're one of the leading integrators of Sugar. We've built integrations with SugarCRM and Sage software, Intact, Vantage, QuickBooks, some marketing software, and credit card software. It's a big part of what we do, building and supporting integrations with Sugar. Our team is all in the office. We don't outsource programming or development overseas. A lot of other folks do that sort of thing, but we like having control in-house. And over the years, we've done hundreds of successful implementations of accounting, ERP, CRM, and custom development. Some of our services, we do implementations, training, support, customizations, project management, data conversion, all kinds of stuff. So you get a feel for we're a full-service software and consulting shop. Some of you may know about Sugar. Some of you may not know about Sugar. Sugar has been around for about 8 years. It is the fastest-growing CRM software company in the world. There are over 1 million users of the software in 80,000 or more companies around the globe. There's 400 partners like us. There's a lot of different versions of Sugar out there. There's actually a free version called the Community Edition, and then beyond that, there's 4 other versions of Sugar. Some of the cool parts about Sugar, one of the reasons why we started working with Sugar years ago, is that it's a really flexible solution. So for one, it's a cloud-based solution, and Sugar will host the software for you at no additional charge. But if you wanted to have Sugar on an in-house server, you could do that as well. Or if you wanted it hosted at a third-party hosting company, like some of the hosts of QuickBooks, you could do that also. So we really like the idea that users can determine what's best for them, whether it's hosted in the cloud, hosted internally, or such. And a lot of the competing CRM software out there don't have that kind of flexibility. In addition, Sugar is what's called an open source software package, which means the source code comes with it, and which means at the end of the day, there's nothing that you can't customize Sugar to do. It doesn't mean you always need to customize Sugar. It's pretty full-featured out of the box, but we found it to be incredibly customizable and flexible, and with some tools within Sugar. And then at the end of the day, as I said, it is an open source product, which means there's nothing it can't do. And then the last thing I just wanted to say at this point about Sugar is it's a really cost-effective solution. The cost of Sugar for the basic version, called the professional version, is $30 per user per month, which we found to be a really affordable thing. And that version, it's not like it's a stripped-down version. You get a ton of functionality. There are additional versions that cost more, but they add features and functionality that most of our clients don't necessarily need. So it's a really cost-effective solution. Most of you probably know about Intuit and QuickBooks. It's the leading provider of accounting and ERP software in the SMB space. They've been doing this for more than 30 years and supporting more than 4 million customers worldwide. Probably don't need to talk a lot about QuickBooks with you folks. The integration. So it made sense to build integration between Sugar and QuickBooks, QuickBooks being the leading accounting solution out there in the most companies, and Sugar, the fastest growing CRM software. They really go together. And so we built this integration so it would work with QuickBooks Professional, Premier, and Enterprise. It'll work with Sugar, any of the versions of Sugar, and Sugar can be hosted in the cloud, on an in-house server, wherever you want it. That's what it's going to work with. If you have QuickBooks hosted, it'll work in a QuickBooks hosted environment as well. The way that we've built this is that it synchronizes data between the two systems on a scheduler. It's set automatically at every 10 minutes. We have some users that are doing it every 5 minutes, I think we have someone doing it every 2 minutes. So however you want it to be, however real time you need things to be, you can set it up to work that way. Some of the key aspects of the integration, and we'll get into this when we get into the demo, but it's synchronizing customer data between Sugar and QuickBooks. So you change an address in one place, it updates in the other. Your inventory items in QuickBooks get synchronized up to Sugar, and those include inventory, non-inventory, service items, all that kind of thing. And the synchronization is, the inventory item name, quantity on hand, description, other data like that. We also synchronize sales and invoice history, including line items, so you can pull up any customer in Sugar and see all the QuickBooks invoices that have been posted to that account, and then you can click on it and drill down and see details and all that kind of stuff. You can enter quotes and sales orders into Sugar, and they will automatically flow into QuickBooks as an estimate or a sales order. And that can be really helpful for sales teams. One of the nice things we like about that, and that we've heard this from people, is that people can be entering, because people can enter sales orders into Sugar and they'll show up in QuickBooks, it may eliminate the need to buy some QuickBooks licenses and save some money there for some end users. And then lastly, the last point I want to mention on the slide is that we give you the ability to customize the mappings between the two packages, which means that if you add a custom field in QuickBooks, if you add a field maybe called color to your inventory items in QuickBooks, you can add a custom field called color in Sugar, and you can make sure they go together. And so we tried really hard to make this as easy to use as possible, and we'll get into that. And with that, I think it's time to do the demo. So let's start doing that. So the way we built our integration is there's 3 components to the integration. There's QuickBooks, which you can see here. There's Sugar, which you can see here, and you may or may not have seen Sugar before, but this is the home screen in Sugar. And then lastly is the QuickBooks Web Connector, which is up here. And the QuickBooks Web Connector gets installed in any computer running QuickBooks. And it's the thing that keeps everything in sync. So I'm going to start with the Sugar portion of this. Now this is the home screen. This screen is a little busy because there's a lot of information on it, but really the cool thing is when you first log into Sugar, your home screen is what appears. And what we have here are some things that we thought would be interesting to us. For example, we have our top account list in Sugar. And so you can see this is all data that came in from QuickBooks. And we can see Christy is my top account. Her year-to-date sales are $52,000 and so on. In addition, you can see other types of CRM data. These are calls that I need to make that are scheduled for me. Here's some key leads down here that are important for me. One of the nice things about Sugar is if I don't like the way this looks, if I think calls are more important than my top accounts, I can just drag this up here, and it just changed that for me that easily. If I don't want to see what my calls are on my home screen, I can just click this X, and that goes away. And you can make this screen look a lot cleaner with a lot less information. You can also add graphs and reports and other things on here. And so let me do this. So I want to start on our administration screen and just show you briefly how the integration gets set up. So this is our QuickBooks integration, Sugar QuickBooks integration page. When you first install the integration, this is the screen you need to go to set it up. We tried to make this as simple as possible. So you enter in a product key, which we give you. It tells you when the integration expires. You enter in where your Sugar is installed. So this is the URL where it's installed. And pretty much once you've done that and you've installed the web connector, you're good to go. There's a basic configuration screen now that you can go to, and it asks you a few key questions. And we tried to put a lot of information on the screen to make it easy and obvious about what each of these functionality, whether each of these functions means. So the first question is, which is your master system? When there's a conflict between the two, which one is going to win? So most people would want it to be QuickBooks, but this is like if there's different addresses in Sugar and QuickBooks, which one do you want to be the master? So in this case, we're going to say QuickBooks. Second question says, when you enter quotes or sales orders in Sugar, where do you want it to go in QuickBooks? They can go to estimates or sales orders. The third question says, when you're entering a quote in Sugar, there's a field there that's called the sales stage, and that's what determines whether it goes to QuickBooks or whether it just stays in the CRM software. And so we're telling it, if you change the stage to closed accepted, send it to QuickBooks. And this will come back up a little later, and we'll see. There's different ways to sync inventory items. And then lastly, you tell it which synchronizations are active. So we have checkboxes here. We have accounts and customers, quotes going to sales orders, sales history, and product catalog. If you don't, and inventory items. If you don't want a sync to be active, you just uncheck it, and it doesn't sync. And that's really it for the basic configuration. As you'll see, we have a couple advanced tabs here that have all kinds of other stuff, but really, for the basic user, this is all you need to do. So with that, let's go into one of our accounts here in Sugar, and we're going to pull up Christy because she's a good account. So this is Christy Abercrombie. She's an account in Sugar. She's also a customer in QuickBooks. All this data here came in from our sync in QuickBooks. And then down here you'll see we have sales history, all the invoices in QuickBooks related to this account. Now just to give you a flavor for how the integration works, you'll see Christy's address is 100 West Larry Bird Road. Now we're I don't know about the rest of you on this call, but we're Laker fans, and that Larry Bird Road thing is a little offensive. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Christy here in QuickBooks, and let's change her address from Larry Bird Road to be 999 Magic Johnson Parkway. And of course, that's in Los Angeles. Okay, and I'm going to do that. And what I'm going to do is, so if we waited 10 minutes, I would expect that address to be updated, but we're not going to wait. I'm just going to manually launch this integration so it'll run. And so at some point, now we're back in Sugar, at some point I would expect this address to change to Magic. We'll come back to that. So while we're waiting for that, let's scroll down here, and we can see here's all the sales history related to Christy coming in from Sugar. And you'll see it's got the invoice number, the sale date, the due date, if there's a PO number, total amount, and then it indicates whether the invoice has been paid or not. And if I drill down into one of these invoices, so let's go into invoice number 1100, it gives me all kinds of more information about that invoice. Here's all of the header information. It's got sales tax rate, a transaction number, shipping address, everything else. And then down below that, there's the line items. So we can see there was a wood door bought, there were some custom cabinets, there were some hardware brass hinges, and so on. As I said, this is really cool because you get all this data available to you in your CRM software wherever you are. If you're on the road, you can go to the URL where Sugar is, and you can have access to all this information. Let's go back to Christy, and we'll notice her address has already changed. She's now at 999 Magic Johnson Parkway. So that's an example of how quick the integration works and how quick it can work. The next thing to take a look at is we're going to enter in a quote in Sugar and have it go into QuickBooks. Before we do that, let's just take a quick look at the inventory. So I'm going to pull up the inventory screen, and the inventory in Sugar is called the product catalog. And so this is a product catalog, and this is just a list of the items that are in Sugar that came in from QuickBooks. And so you'll see there's cabinets, and it has whether it's an inventory type, a non-inventory type, a service, whatever it is. You notice material and color and size are custom fields that were set up in QuickBooks, and they came into Sugar. And then there's a quantity on hand, cost, list, and the standard price. And this is just sort of a list view of the items. You can drill down and see more details about each item in Sugar. But this is just to give you a feel for all the items that came in from QuickBooks. So now, if we were going to go enter a quote into Sugar, I'm going to say create quote. This is the basic quote entry screen in Sugar. So you can give it a subject. So let's just say this is a holiday order. The quote stage is really important. That's what we talked about when we were setting up the system. That determines whether this quote gets synced into Sugar, into QuickBooks. And so if we leave this as draft, it will just stay here in Sugar and be something that salespeople can work on, but it will never end up in the accounting system. But we're going to change this to say closed accepted, which is what we told our system would send it to QuickBooks. I'm going to say this is valid till the end of this month. I'm going to pick my customer. Let's take Christy. Notice her address is Magic Johnson Parkway. And now let's put in a couple line items. So I'm going to start typing a line item, and we'll make it about 5 cabinets. And let's see what else we can do here. How about a light pine? And you'll notice it's subtotaled here. It calculated tax. The tax rate is San Domingo. The tax rate tables come in from QuickBooks, so all of that synchronizes. Gives you a grand total, tax, and a total. So I'm going to save this order. Let's give it a PO number 124556. And I'm going to save that. So now let me just quickly, again, within 10 minutes that would show up in QuickBooks, but I'm just going to manually launch that sync. And in a minute we'll go take a look at that order showing up in QuickBooks. So while we're waiting for that, wanted to show you the quick screen of how the mapping works. Now again, you may or may not have to go into this screen, okay? But there's a function down here that says QuickBooks and SugarCRM field mapping. And all this does is it allows you to point fields in QuickBooks to fields in Sugar. And so it already comes with all these mappings in there. As I said, there's nothing you have to do unless you want something custom done. So for example, if I go into my inventory items, over here, I could pull up my QuickBooks field list. Let's say I want the color here. Over here, it pulls up my sugar list. And I go, okay, here's my color there. And I click Add, and it would sync them together. Now you notice I already have that here. But all you do is click Add, and basically from that point forward, that sync will now be in effect. We tried to make this very straightforward to use, and hopefully that shows up here. It's a fairly straightforward thing, and as I said, you don't have to do it, but for those of you who are more technically inclined or have a lot of custom fields, you can do this without programming. You don't need us to do it. It's all something you can do on your own side. So let's go back and take a look at our holiday order. And here it is, and you'll notice we pulled this order back up that we entered in. It now says here in the description, QuickBooks sales order number 7024, which means it made it into QuickBooks. And we're back on Christie's screen, and here we go. Sales order number 7024. If I double-click on it, it has Christie on Magic Johnson Parkway. It has our line items. It has the San Domingo tax rate and the grand total. And so that's how you would send a sales order from Sugar into QuickBooks. And really, that's the basic functionality of the integration. The rest of this is all Sugar stuff. So you'll see, we're back on this home screen. We created a collections dashboard here that lists the people who owe the most amount of money in the system. And again, this came from QuickBooks. So each of these customers has a big balance. If I want to scroll through this, I just hit the arrow here and I can see other people. It's a great thing to be able to use. If I want to drill down on this customer and see more about him, I can say, oh, I want to take a look at Robert, and just click on him. And there's Robert. And there's that open invoice that's on the list, $14,510. It's not paid. That's why there's a big open invoice there. And I think, Adrian, we're at a good place. I think we've gone through the key functionality.